Welcome to Prepper's Paradise, Ultimate Prepper's Handbooks, Off-Grid Handbook, Beginner's Ultimate Guide. What's covered in this course episode? Overview of off-grid living. What kinds of off-grid living are there? How to get started off-grid living. How to choose what kind of off-grid living works best for you. The basics of living off-grid. What items you need and don't need. Basic off-grid gear and supplies. Basic storage of gear and supplies. How to plan out your off-grid living setup. How to have amenities like normal when off-grid. The basics of using solar power off-grid. Off-grid necessity versus amenity. The basics of food storage and selection. Basics of water storage and collection off-grid. Okay, overview of off-grid living. What is off-grid living? So, basically, it's mainly, for the most part, it's just living off the grid of the system, power, or water, and such, or both generally. Things of that nature, which generally requires being rural, usually. It's kind of hard to do it in urban, but you can. We won't be talking about that. That's a separate issue. And it ties in with homesteading, but at the same time, you can have a normal home that's slightly rural or something and take it off grid as well. You can probably do it in the city, especially if you're not in a big city or in an apartment or something and actually own your own house type deal. Then you can probably still manage it, but that would be the equivalent of being rural, just not really. You have a small little rural square, or whatever, called your house. So a lot of solar, basically, well, things of that nature, or cisterns, whatever you prefer, or whatever works better. Sometimes a well just doesn't work. So let's see. I generally consider it to also be tied in with being self-sufficient, off-grid, off the food grid as well, but I don't know that that's generally what people associate it with. It's definitely associated with homesteading, gardening type deal. But the purposes of this, we'll cover a little bit of it in that sense. Gardening, that is. We'll cover a little bit of gardening. What kinds of off-grid living are there? Well, for starters, you can take your own house and just turn it into off-grid, providing you're able to do that. It's just being off the main water source of theirs and solar power of some sort or something, wind, solar power. And then there is like tiny house, which is basically the same as RV in a sense. So tiny house and RV, off-grid living. That means not at a park, of course. It means pretty much anywhere else. Your own land as well could mean that. And then there's like full off-grid, like homesteading kind of style. And then there would be like living off-grid in the wild, basically, type deal. So like a yurt, full-on yurt, which could be your land, or in the prepping scenario, it would be like a last case thing, and if everything collapsed, and of course land was no one's then type deal, but also on your land. Same kind of deal, just like a yurt or teepee kind of deal. That'd be like living off-grid on your land type deal, while still being wild, basically, like off-grid in the wild on your land. I've known a few people that were into that. A couple were Indians. How to get started living off-grid? Well, first off, you got to work up a plan. So you got to figure out what you're going to do as far as what you're trying to get off-grid of course, and how much. What you're getting off and how much, basically. So off the power, off the water, off sewer, off all of it. If you want to learn even more about our prepping, off-grid living, homesteading, or survival tactics and knowledge, get premium today.